everyone, welcome to another Chit Chat with Mandi and Caryl. I'm Mandi, the board gaming pinup girl.
Hi guys, I'm Caryl, also known as Caryl Has No Tan.
So today we're going to do a review for the game Whistle Stop. Choo choo! Oh boy, here we go.
Wait, that's
today.
an actual dance move, right? It's like.
Oh no, I thought you were going to whistle.
Oh no.
Yeah, we've given up on that.
I was doing, what is it, the train engine?
The train.
Yeah, this is an actual dance move.
Oh, I didn't know that actually.
I don't know, I learned it from school.
So, if you've had enough of our dance moves and you're looking for a specific part of the video, you can check out in the video below and it'll tell you, well, where you can find all the good stuff. So I think we're ready to do gameplay for Whistle Stop. With the driving of the Golden Spike in 1869, the first transcontinental railroad was completed in the United States. But this was only the beginning of a rapid expansion of railways that would crisscross the entire country. On your way, gain shares in other railroads, watch your reputation soar with each successful delivery. Then make a final push to complete long hauls to the boom towns of the West. The goal is to be the player whose railroad scores the most fame points. So now we're going to take a look at the game setup. We've set it up for you, but you can see there are a few things that need to happen. We have the special tiles here. So these are the upgrade actions that you can take throughout the game. And these you want to shuffle, and you're going to place out two more than the amount of players. And those are going to be face up on the board, onto the side of the board. You're also going to have the actual board. As you can see, it's put together in pieces here. You're going to have some end tiles mixed in with some of the special tiles down here in the middle, and then these are the end kind of gold tiles that you'll get, and we're only choosing 10 of these, and the rest will go to the box. Here we have a mix of the regular light colored tiles with the tracks and resources, and then we have some of the special tiles mixed in, and we put those down the middle, or somewhat middle of the board. And then we have end tiles that are placed here. These are also the regular tiles with some with resources, some without. Placing these on the edge of the board closest to where we're going to start with our trains, but keep in mind you want to put ones where the tracks are not going backwards. So you want to make sure it's not making a loop that you're not able to get out of. So we've done that here. And we also have the train set up. This will happen when the game starts, placing trains. Each player will take turns placing their trains here, and this is dependent on the amount of players that you're playing with how many you get to play. In a two-player game, as we've set up here, it's going to be 5 trains, so all of your trains will come out. Here is kind of tracking the rounds. As I said, we're playing with 2 players, so you're placing coal, 2 coal per player per space. So we're starting at the top. If it were 3, you'd start further down, and 2 whistles on the spot where there's a whistle. Then what you'll want to do is place the tiles, 3 of them face up and the pile here. So those special tiles that we didn't end up using are actually going to go mixed up with the regular light colored tiles, and that's going to be here for players to draw because we'll need to draw back up at the end of our turn. And we have 3 face up of these tiles to choose from as well. We also have resources set aside in the different colors. We also have stocks, and these will come into play when we land in specific special tile areas, as well as gold, which are actually going to be points at the end of the game, but these will be face down to the side, as well as a stock supply of whistles and coals. You also want to make sure that you have your board, which has all of your action numbers on there in place for your upgraded abilities. Each player is going to start with 3 tiles, which are going to keep those secret. At the beginning of the turn, the start player distributes the tokens that were on the fill space. So in a 2-player game, there were 4, 2 to each player, so 2 coal tokens. And 1 whistle is one we started with. So on your turn, you can spend up to the 4 here. So if you had 4, in this case I only have 3, but if I had 4, then I would be able to spend that in order to take actions. Once you've reached 4, that's it, your turn would have to end, but you can choose to only take 1, 2, or 3 actions and end your turn. If you decide you don't want to take actions here, you can also acquire upgrade tiles. So every time you decide you want to move your train, so in this particular circumstance, I am the blue player, I would use either a coal or a whistle to do so. Using the whistle will allow me to move my train, skipping to 2 spots. So if I were to work in this circumstance here, I can move this train 1, and because I have nowhere else to go, I can place another tile here, moving here for 2. So I'd started here, 1, 2. I do not get the resource that I skipped over, instead receiving the resource that I landed on. So we have cotton. Now we are limited to the amount of resources we have. So 10 is the most that you can have at that point. If I had chosen not to use the whistle, I could have decided instead to use a coal, and I could have chosen to move 1 space, therefore receiving lumber. Something else of note with a whistle, you can actually use a whistle to move backwards. So moving back to a spot versus using coal, you aren't able to do that. You always need to be moving down or forward. So when taking an action and moving to one of the special tiles, in this case the whistle factory, you just gain whatever that tile states. So in this case, this is the whistle factory, which allows you to obtain a whistle, and you can put that in your supply. There are other special tiles that are on the board, such as here, when we talk about the shares, the railroad shares. So the railroad share special tiles have a special color, so it's red or blue or yellow depending. If your train were to land on one of these tiles, you need to ensure that you have the 2 resources listed. So in this case, so the cotton and the cattle. Those are the 2 resources looking for in order to give you 7 victory points. If you do not have those resources and landing on that tile, you will lose 2 points. So you really want to make sure you have your resources before you land on those sorts of tiles. If you were unable to move for whatever reason on your turn, you may gain 1 whistle and forfeit all future movement for your turn. However, you can still upgrade if you wish. Now the upgrades, when you do acquire them, do go into the bottom portion of your player area. Additionally, when completing these special tiles, the ones, for example, here where it listed the red railroad share, you will acquire that railroad share. So in this case, you'll take the one that's off the top. If you'll notice, there's a number. Having the shares are stacked in ascending order, so having number 1 is great, because if you end up having number 1 and another player has number 2 and you're tied for red shares, the player who has the lowest number will break that tie and win the most amount of shares. When your train has reached one of the end tiles, you want to ensure that you have all the resources in order to acquire the bonuses. So in this case, we're looking for cattle, whiskey, and steel. So you take those resources from your supply and return them to the general supply. That will garner you 25 victory points. If you land here and do not have the resources it's requesting, you will lose the amount of points listed in the bottom. In this case, it's -6 points. So once you've reached this tile, you now get to choose where you'd like to park your train and take the listed resources. So for example, in this case, if I decided to park my train here, I would be allowed to take a cotton resource, coal, and a whistle. And that train is no longer used in the game, and also removes that spot then from being taken by anyone else. If a player ends on a stock market end tile, you gain a listed number of fame points for each railroad share that you have. So don't forget, these are your railroad shares. You then remove one of those shares from the game. So in going here, make sure that you have a fair amount of shares because one of them will be removed. And then from here, the same follows, where you would decide what space you would like to move your train to and take the listed items on that space. The game ends at the end of the last round. So that's listed on the track here, during which one player gets their last train off the board. For scoring, you're going to score for each type of stock that you have. The player with the most shares of a type scores 15 points. And in the event of a tie, like we stated previously, the player who has the lowest stock number is the majority stock holder. You're going to score points for any upgrades that you own, listed on the actual upgrade. You're going to score fame points shown on each gold token that you have, and the numbers are listed there. You're going to score 1 fame point for each unused common resource. So common resources are lumber, cotton, and gravel. Then you're going to score 3 fame points for each unused rare tokens you have. So steel, cattle, and whiskey. Then you're going to score fame points for each 2 tokens that you have. So either the whistles or the coal. You will lose 10 points for every special tile in your hand. So the ones with the darker background. The player with the highest score wins. So now ready to give a review for the game Whistle Stop. What'd you think?
Ooh, okay. There's so much going on. Well, actually, no, not really. It looks like there's a lot going on because there's so many components, there's so many tiles, there's so many different paths winding all around.
Right.
But after you get through all that and you actually understand the game, it's actually fairly simple, fairly easy to get into, and it's so fun. I really like this one.
I can tell. I liked it too. It's not as, it's exactly what you said. It's not as complicated as it looks because of all the pieces, but I enjoyed it as well. All the times I played it, I tried different strategies. None have allowed me to win, but you know, you got to try them out. But I enjoyed it. Yeah. So I know we played it, well, we played it a few times, but we played it the last time we played, I think I noticed a strategy that seemed to kind of backfire. People don't need to diversify in this game.
Yes, that's something that could be fixed in, say, something like an expansion, but I found that any strategy that's mainly focused on stocks,
right,
that person's more likely to win. It's not a guarantee because, you know, things happen, but the stocks is like almost the surefire way to win, in my opinion.
Anytime I played this game with someone, I would see someone trying to get to those end goals, you know, at the end where they create their rails and they have a mechanism or a way to do that and continually use that rail to keep getting points. And then I've had to gently tell people, and I don't know, I'm just trying to be nice, you may want to get some stocks because you won't win the game just on that. Because I was trailing at one point, and then I knew by looking at the stocks I had that I would easily be able to catch up because having a certain amount of stocks gives you a lot of points.
Yeah.
But
so like, it gets weird though because like you see someone trying to get stocks and then someone has to kind of stop their strategy midway and prevent that person from getting stocks and like, you know, make a tie or get more than them just to stop them, which kind of like puts a halt to their strategy. And like, you know, it's a lot of going out of your way to stop someone from getting like, from beating you from like 40 points to only like 15 or something. So like there's some, I just don't know if we haven't played it enough to really flesh out entirely, but like it's just something that I found as we were playing it. But I don't know. I think we're already going like too deep into strategy.
I know, right? I'm sorry. I'm just saying. I can't help it because I played it enough that I'm like, right? Different things happen. But but I do like the fact in this game that, you know, when you're playing, you do have opportunities. I mean, you have a multitude of trains that you're moving, right? Yeah. And I did like the fact that they had those, you know, the tiles where you can get, you know, just converting your goods to something else or bonus, you know, tiles, or you're able to acquire the other actions that you can place onto your board. So those other little tiles that you can place on your board and taking your own actions through there, and those are also worth points at the end of the game. So there are a variety of ways to get points.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know?
Yeah. And I do like how the game gives you a lot and yet so little. Like you have a certain amount of actions you can, you know, take at max, which is like with your coals or your whistles. And then at the same time, you have so many different avenues to go about on the board. Like you have more than one train on the board. So it's like, so I'm going to take this one here and go all the way like this, or like this one, we'll do this one instead. Like And then you have the tile part too. It's like, okay, well, I can rotate this in so many ways. And then be like, this way, right?
Exactly.
Like, but that also brings up the other issue I had with it, where
Okay.
if you have analysis paralysis,
Yeah.
where if you're just stuck and you have to figure out every single whichever way you have on your turn, and you want to find the optimal one, you're going to be sitting there for a while. And other people there are going to be sitting there for a while watching this person try and like piece together what's the best way, what can I do?
But I feel that happened closer to the end of the game.
Absolutely, yeah.
Like, not saying it didn't happen throughout. No, I didn't find it too bad. But at the end, in the last, few rounds, people are kind of like really trying to strategize. And you're right. I do think there was a lot of downtime waiting for them to figure it all out. I mean, I try to plan ahead as much as possible. But yes, when you get to the end, it's kind of hard because people are changing the trajectory of where you're trying to go. So, yes, I agree with you on that.
Yeah, and I can get like someone wanting to like, try and find out what's optimal and like know their options. But because there's so many options, like when you normally have like maybe 2, 3 that you want to consider and then like really think about, you have like probably 8, 10, 15 different things that you could potentially do on your turn. It's like,
right, yeah.
Which one? Which one?
Where do I go? Exactly, because you're trying to figure out which way is not going to get people to come after you.
Yeah.
And either stop you in your tracks, literally,
yeah.
or, try and, cut you off from getting more of, stocks for your portfolio. So I totally get that. I did also have some issue with the coloring of the trains. Now, I did notice the copy that I have is darker than the original copy I played because it's all pastels, which I normally don't have a problem with, but I even had a hard time, and I'm not colorblind, and I had a hard time knowing the difference between the yellow and the pink and, the blue and the green were close just because they were so light.
Yeah.
Kept moving somebody else's train.
I think Meeple Like Us did an article about whether it was colorblind friendly, and they did like a simulated picture of what it would look like if someone were colorblind and how the board looks to them. It looks exactly the same, and there's no differentiator between like, whether this train's yours or if that's blue or pink or what.
Right.
Yeah.
But like I said, I even had trouble. I didn't even need that test to tell you. Like it was difficult. So I know mine's a little bit darker, so I don't know if we're going to change that. I get it to give it a nice aesthetic, but it would make it makes it sometimes difficult because you're moving other people's pieces and not on purpose.
Yeah.
So
for sure.
That's the only kind of thing I had a problem with. But the gameplay itself, I enjoyed. I mean, it's a typical kind of train game. Is it anything that's going to blow other train games out of the water? Not necessarily. But for me, it's not even about that. I enjoyed the gameplay. It was fun. I had options. There are a variety of ways to gain points. You could even get points by collecting gold. That's something else we didn't even talk about. I like that. So, yes, I don't think one strategy of getting points is going to win. I think you have to incorporate a couple things into that.
Sure.
But that will make you want to play the game more often to see what works.
Yeah, definitely. Like you have the replayability part because where you start on the board may be different from one game to the next. Like not everyone is starting at the exact same place.
Right.
Like you have an entire column of starting positions. Then you have an entire column of like possible endpoints, an entire column of like middle points.
Right.
So it's like it's always gonna be different, and there's gonna be a reason to go back to it. It's not like, oh, I figured out the strategy. It's always this, and then it's like boom, boom, boom. It's like sometimes, stocks sometimes do get you those most points, but then sometimes it could be the farthest thing away from you, and it just wastes so much time to try and get that, for example. So then you might have to do something else. But I don't know. Like it's a couple issues I have with it, but I like it.
It's like cut all that.
But I say it because I like it so much. I have to be critical of it on both parts I didn't like, because it's like at this level, but like I want it to be like this, and then I have to be critical of like the little parts of it that stops it from being at that part. You know what I mean? Yeah.
No, that's exactly. And like everything we talked about, I agree. And these are things we had talked about during the gameplay. So it's not like we weren't aware of it, and that's why it's important that we tell other people so they'll know what to expect when they play it. So we're not saying it's a bad game. We're saying it's a good game, but there are a few other things that can make it an even better game.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
That's what it comes down to.
Exactly.
So there you have it. That's our review for Whistle Stop, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.